I so nearly messed this review up entirely. I'll tell you more about that in a second. Today, I'm looking at this. This is the Tronsmart T7 Bluetooth speaker. Although this product was sent to me by Tronsmart for review, all opinions are entirely my own, and Tronsmart have no editorial control at all. I will discuss both the good and the bad. And if you just want to hear how this speaker sounds, I will try and demonstrate that later on in the video, and I'll put time codes down in the description. So it'll come up as a chapter in the video as a kind of audio test or something like that. Firstly, let's cover the specs. This is the speaker itself. It's a 30 watt vertical cylindrical speaker. It's IPX7 rated, which means it's fully waterproof and should work fine if you drop it in a pool or a lake or whatever. The X in that rating just means that Tronsmart haven't done the dust ingress testing. It doesn't mean that it's going to be completely useless in a dusty environment, it just means they haven't done the test. It's Bluetooth 5.3, which is the latest and greatest at the time of recording. Since version 5, Bluetooth has had increased bandwidth support, which has allowed sort of extra features with Bluetooth around sort of streaming to multiple devices at once. But because this is actually a receiver, it's a speaker, so it's a Bluetooth receiver rather than a transmitter, they tend to put that capability to use around stereo pairing. So they add stereo pairing to the feature list, which means you can do that with this speaker as well. Really, this is about Tronsmart saying, buy 2 of our products, spend twice as much money with us, and we'll give you a nice stereo speaker setup as a result. Audio can also be played from a micro SD card, which is put in just here next to the USB-C charging port. Battery life is up to 12 hours, according to the manufacturer, but more on that in a second. The speaker has RGB lights in a ring around the top. The lights surround this circular dial here, which is used as a volume control. The rest of the controls are tucked here down the side of the speaker. You've got all your standard kind of Bluetooth controls here. Always appear on all speakers, so I won't go into any detail around those. As is increasingly common with all speakers, EQ can be adjusted via an app, which doesn't require a login, by the way, and firmware can be updated there too. The T7 tries to separate itself from the pack by having what they call 360-degree sound. I'll show you what that means by stealing a 3D render from Tronsmart's website, but effectively the speaker setup is duplicated both sides with the sub at the base. So let's say you're sat sort of at a picnic bench or something like that, and you kind of plonk the speaker down in the middle. The idea is that you've got kind of tweeters and mids pointing equally in both directions, so both people will hear sound of equal quality. Finally, I'll give sound pulse a mention because there is actually a button dedicated to it here, and it's also written on the box too, I think. We've got the sound pulse logo here on the box, so I will give it a mention, but I honestly am not absolutely sure what it does. I'll just read what it says on the box and you can decide what you think it is. Sound pulse. It's Tronsmart's patented algorithm, an upgraded version of DSP technology which works alongside a customized chip and large power chamber. With this combination of advanced engineering and sophisticated software, Tronsmart Sound Pulse technology delivers more balanced, more detailed, and more defined audio. Okay, I'm none the wiser from that. I hope you are. So let's be clear here. I'm reviewing this product after using it daily for over a month. This is an honest opinion from someone who has really tried this thing out, and it's not a rushed video from someone just trying to get their video out first. Let's throw a little spoiler in here for those of you who are getting bored at this point. This is the box. This is a great speaker. It's well made, and with a little EQ tweaking, sounds superb for the size and also for the price. Let's look a little bit more at the good points. Stereo pairing, firstly. I mentioned earlier about stereo pairing. Tronsmart weren't stupid because they sent me 2 of these. That was 100% the right thing to do because I paired these 2 pretty shortly after receiving them, and I have never looked back. In fact, it also means that I'm going to sit here and recommend that you do the same. Spend more on these, part with more cash in order to buy 2 of them if you can afford it. If you can only afford to buy one, that's fine. You'll still have a really good Bluetooth speaker, but it is the case that the whole is definitely greater than the sum of its parts here. Most of my use for these has been connected to my Apple TV, actually. I've been using them to replace my Sonos 5 Gen 2 speakers. So effectively, I'm replacing £1,200 worth of speaker here with £100 worth of T7. They don't sound quite as good, but they're remarkably close. Stereo pairing is really simple, and they reliably repair each time you use them. The left speaker, which I still need to mark at some point because it gets really confusing which is which, so I would suggest you put a sticker on one of them or something like that to mark which is the left one. The left one becomes the primary, or in my case it did anyway, and so everything you do on this speaker is duplicated across to the right. So no, you do not need to turn them both off, you just turn one off and the other one turns off as well. If you want to change lighting modes on the speaker, it changes it on the other one as well. So they're both synced basically. Build quality wise, these things feel really solid and sturdy. There's no creaky plastic or any kind of cheap rubbish here. The volume control, I guess, is a little bit wobbly, but the units hold their own and don't vibrate even with loud volumes. Full marks on build quality, particularly, again, as I say, at this price. Design-wise, well, I've never used a cylindrical design Bluetooth speaker before. I wasn't sure about it when I first sort of got them, but it makes perfect sense, really, doesn't it? They have a far smaller footprint than a pill speaker, for example. Like a pair of these takes up basically the same amount of space as a single pill speaker. I mean, if you think about it, though, that's sort of how speakers have always been. You look at something like this, it's, you know, more vertically designed rather than horizontally designed. The whole kind of like flat pill speaker is more of a recent reincarnation. And audio quality wise, as mentioned, they sound great for the price and the size, but let's take a listen. So the micro SD slot in the side here, I kind of originally thought this was a bit of a dated idea, because who has music in a file format anymore? Most people just stream off sort of Spotify or Apple Music or Tidal or whatever. But if you do, it is a nice additional feature. If you do still have sort of MP3 files to work with, it is a nice additional feature to have. Bluetooth listening is fine when you have a device to stream from, but it could also be quite nice to just buy a really cheap, even just a 32 gig or 64 or 128 gig micro SD card, put thousands of songs on there that you like, and just leave it in the speakers. And then you've always got them available. So for the times you don't have a spare device to stream from, I don't know, maybe you're having a party, for example, and you don't want to tie up a phone or a laptop. You just put all the songs on the micro SD, set these up, and just let them run all evening, and they'll just be going and going and going. And you also get the benefit of premium audio quality as well, because you're not dealing with sort of nasty Bluetooth codecs that always have a bit of an edge to them, and always sound a little bit rough. So yeah, you get the better quality out of them too. So what about the bad stuff? Well, firstly, battery life. It's okay, but it's not amazing. I guess I've been a little bit spoiled because I've got used to the battery life of a boombox style speaker, which I can use for hours a day for weeks on end. These are fairly poor in comparison. With a dual speaker setup, I don't imagine there's too much room for a battery in there. And it sort of does show, because I kind of find myself having to charge these daily, which just becomes another job to do, another thing where you're having to think, right, oh, do these need a charge? Yeah, I'll have to put them on charge. So you take them away from where you're using them and stick them on a charger somewhere. And just having to do that every day just becomes a bit of a chore. The RGB lights. So these lights, you can see them flash, that one flashing on top at the moment. They're subtle, they're attractive, but the cost in battery life is just not worth it. According to the manual, this isn't according to my testing, this is according to the manual, the battery life is 12 hours without the lights, but only 4 hours with. So you can completely obliterate your battery life just to have a few minimal moving lights going across the top of the speakers. I mean, I guess you might use them if you've got them permanently plumbed into some kind of USB supply, but apart from that, they're just a big old waste of time. The light setting, so this isn't actually paired at the moment, but if it was, you'd have it set on one of the 4 modes, and that setting doesn't survive a power cycle. Now, I've looked on the Tronsmart website, and it appears they have got firmware being released to fix this in October 2022, but it's not out at the moment, so I'm going to talk about it in this video anyway. The idea is that every time I turn this on, obviously I want the lights off, because I don't want to, I can quadruple my battery life almost by turning the lights off. So I would turn the lights off by pressing this 5 times in total. It goes through the 4 modes, or maybe 4 times. And I have to do that every time I turn them on, because each power cycle, it's back to the lights being on again. Frustrating. So they mentioned, I spoke before about the 360-degree sound, this selling point of theirs. It's even mentioned on the box here, this 360-degree sound. Well, I'd kind of call it 180-degree sound, because at the very start of the video, I said that I almost messed up this review. I thought, from looking at this picture on the front, that this front of the speakers, so obviously the speaker has a front and it has the same on the back, was this here. So where you've got this little drop here, I thought that was the front, but it's not. And that's really, really important, because, well, here we go. Look, if you look, we've got this little lip here that sort of drops. I thought that was the front. That is the front. So this is where the speakers are, and this is where the speakers are. And if you pair them and you have this side facing you, you've got your tweeters facing in a kind of 90 degrees off to the side, and you get some really rough, weird phasing kind of effects happening. It makes a big difference when you rotate it that 90 degrees towards you. So what I'm effectively saying is that this is kind of like 90 degrees coming off here, 90 degrees coming off the other side there. So 360 sound, maybe that's a little bit too sort of optimistic, but certainly 90 degrees from each side, and it works great. In conclusion, that's all I've got. There's not really too much to moan about. The T7 is a great addition to the market of countless Bluetooth speakers out there. There are hundreds of them, and Tronsmart have done a pretty good job making theirs a little bit better than many of the others. It's got superb audio with solid bass. Again, as I say, if you tweak it in the app, you can get it to sort of just sound just as you want it to. There's plenty of detail, and it's loud enough for most needs. The design is pretty sleek, very minimal, pretty simple with no fuss, which is something I like. The RGB lights are kind of pointless, but they can be turned off, so no problem there. Overall, yeah, I'd recommend this. I'd buy this. In fact, I'd recommend two of them. £100 for a pair. You can easily fill a room with decent quality music. There you go. That's my review of the Tronsmart T7. I'll put links in the description if you'd like to support the channel, and thanks for watching.